Okay, so we're back, and in our last video, we talked about the user flow, we talked about our data structure and the logic of our application and exactly what we're going to be building. Then we took quite a bit actually to flesh out the data structure and what that was going to look like, because it's going to do a lot to inform how our app's going to work. Now, we're going to think a little bit about the design, and then we're going to come up with the first prompt to our application. And we're going to spend a bit more time focusing on the design because I think it's important to getting things the way that we want. And what I've found is that it's really hard to go back and change the design of our application. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to come up with our design and then start prototyping that in Replit while we look at our data structure and kind of reverse engineer the logic from our application from that. That's how I think we're going to approach this. Again, we're building more complex apps, so there's going to be a bit more back and forth, but that's to be expected. So what do I think about when I think about design here? The important things for this app, and we'll make this like kind of big, are that one, it's responsive. And when I say responsive, I just mean it will shift to accommodate different screen sizes, and it'll work really well on our phone. Second, I really like minimalist applications. My favorite apps usually have Inter as the font. They have like slight border radius on buttons. So typically, like a border radius is just like the corners. Here you can see the corners are rounded. So that would be like a slight border radius. And I prefer that. Typically, they also use a mix of all caps and adjust this here, and sentence casing. So like for a header, right, you might have like reps, and then you have your header. Inner as the font, but then we also might mix in monospace or serif fonts. So like a serif font, like PP Editorial New, EB Garamond have like little decorative pieces in the font. It's typically like Times New Roman or what you'd read in print. And it can be really nice if you have a sans serif font like Inter, as well as some serif fonts mixed in with monospace fonts, which are typically used for writing code. So a slight border radius, a mix of all caps and sentence casing. I think that we want for this app a dark theme, but very minimalist. And I think we can kind of let Replit kind of run with this design. And what I'm thinking is that we'll actually send the prompt through with some design guidelines. Typically, I like to kind of use the Replit prompt enhance feature, but kind of come up with the design myself. And so we have these characteristics here. Now I'm thinking, help. This is like maybe a pseudo prompt here. Me build a hyper minimalist app for logging my exercises. And what I'm thinking again is we're just going to make an app that is kind of like a shell app with just the functionality, so we can focus on the design and maybe iterate on the design a little bit before we then send like a full build with high autonomy mode to Replit Agent. So help me build a hyper minimalist app for logging my exercises. Use a mix of serif, sans serif, and monospace fonts. I prefer Inter, but I'll let you decide what's best. Use a slight border radius and a responsive card-based layout. This is important because we'll be using the app on our phone and laptop. I'd prefer a dark theme. Help me build a V1 with a focus on clean design and only prototype functionality. So again, this is really just going for building out this shell. So we'll go to Replit, and we're going to kick this one off. Start the chat, and we'll see what agent comes up with. Now, I think the fun thing about like iterating on the design here is that it might not work, or I might not like the output. And because we're early on in the process, I can just start over or change kind of what I want. So this very much is like a prototyping phase where I'm kind of deciding what I'm looking for as I go along. And I think it's also important to take inspiration from other apps that are out there and think about how other apps present themselves. So this is like product thinking. But we'll start with the design here. And product thinking means looking at things that you already have access to and thinking about how they could be better and thinking about how you would have done them yourself. That's what it means to be a product thinker. And so I'm creating something to start, but then I'm going to take a lot of inspiration from other tools that I used, other really well-designed products that I like, and we're going to try and implement those into our application. So we're working on our design, and the other piece is that we still have quite a bit of work to do with our data model. And the nice thing is that I think we're in a good place here. Like I think we're in a good V1 of the data model, but we don't have the logic and the actual prompt for our application. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reverse engineer that from the data model. And we're going to say, can you help me turn this data model into a simple, concise, the keywords when we're working with an LLM, concise prompt for an LLM to implement in our workout tracker app. And this is definitely going to take some iterations because I just know that, I know it's just, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Because we're going to want this, and then we're also going to want the actual functionality of our app. Now, if you recall, I shared this instructions document with you, and this is actually available in my Google Drive. And so I enabled the Google Drive connector in Claude, and we're going to pull this instructions doc into our prompt, along with some of the logic that we talked about in our first kind of foray into this application, right? Of how we adjust the reps in the reps to failure rep scheme, and as well as like what we're considering for these different types of lifts. So we're going to refine that with Claude, and we're going to turn that into a like master prompt that we're going to send once we're done with our design here. So like off the bat, right? Like I do like this. Like that is clean, right? You get the monospace font for the lifts. Yes, this looks good. I like this a lot. So I got a little nervous there when I saw the serif font. So we may strip that out, but I really like how this is starting to look. Cool. Now I'm excited. Outstanding. So let's toggle over to Claude and see what we're working with. This captures the entire data model in 50 lines while preserving all the key architectural decisions we made. Excellent. Okay, so let's say I'm going to actually just use Super Whisper, so this doesn't take a day and a half. I'm going to provide you with a document that contains all of the instructions and logic for our program. We're going to add into our app the ability to program sets then rep increases, as well as a reps to failure scheme, whereby the last set for compound lifts is to failure. I'm also going to provide a 2x2 matrix of exactly what types of lifts we'll be supporting and our goals for each type, which should inform how the application works as well. I'd like to use you as a design partner to help me come up with how this application is going to work. And then we'll go over to our instructions here. And we'll say, I think this is going to work. I've never done this with Claude before. Only extract relevant. Oh, I always forget. Only extract relevant details from this Google Doc. This is an instruction sheet for a much more complicated set of strength programming templates, but we'd just like to extract the bits of reps to failure and the way that periodization works and some of the other logic from this document. So we don't want that. Again, our focus is extracting the logic to reverse engineer our application, and we should keep this as concise as possible. If you have questions, ask me so that we can iterate. Cool. So now we're going to have that document with the context. Cool. And we're slowly starting to whittle away at these questions. Okay, so it wants the matrix. We're going to give it the matrix. Enter the matrix. Copy that. Boom. Progression schemes. Last set to failure. Yep. Sets then reps. Awesome. No, I just... Oh, I guess we're answering questions here. So 1 is attached. Perfect. That's correct. Be sure to include the option for a RPE8, though that's optional. Then we'll also say build these in such a way that they can be easily extended and new schemes added. Oh. Claude already knew what we were going for. Periodization structure. Do you want this level of structure or a simple approach? This is perfect. We also want to be able to control the macro meso cycle lengths. And then auto regulation rules. How much does the target decrease if they miss it for sets then reps, converting the simple logic? Okay, so this is our logic, right? Our progression logic is as follows. And this is really great because it's asking the right questions. So I was a little worried that we might get lost in the sauce, and we might be going in the wrong direction. Follows for our last set to failure. Excuse me. I didn't mean to send that. So we're gonna stop. Stop, Claude. Don't respond. I meant to hit Shift Enter. Oh boy. Logic for we might just get output, and I'm probably blowing up the context window. Logic for our oh, okay. We're actually going to use extended thinking. So we'll just add this as a tag along. Logic for our RPE8 single. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our spreadsheet and we're going to dig in and see what it looks like if what we're actually supposed to do for the RPE8 single. Ooh, there's some like pretty complicated logic for reps at a given percent that we're going to need to build into. Yeah, this is definitely going to be complicated. Some nice deload details there. Might actually be able to look at the setup C88. So this is the weight for each week, right? And the RP8 single rep out would be here. And so this weight is going to change. Oh boy. If F18, whoa, this is gnarly, dude. We might just have to upload this sheet to Claude and just like kind of pray that it's gonna kind of figure this out. All right, we're gonna do that. All right. I feel like they just launched some kind of Excel stuff for Claude, so um this is really great, but I want to attach an XLSX file that contains all of the logic. So what I'd like you to do is look at the Program tab to understand for the RPE8 single rows how we're auto-regulating. So what you should do is look at a sample week, look at the prescribed weight or the estimated max, which is essentially listed as a number, and then look at how the next week is being calculated off of that max and the subsequent reps. So basically, we're reverse engineering the logic in the spreadsheet. Only look at the Program tab for now. Now let's take a look at our prompt. We'll see what Claude's coming up with for us. Less set to failure. Perform n-1 sets at target rates. Use EPS. Final set code of failure. Compare failure reps to target reps. Auto-ration. 4 work sets. Work up to have a single. Recalculates training max. Okay, so we basically have this is like dumber logic than what we had, but that's fine. Training max adjustment after workout, performance versus target. That's great. And then we have our data model. Are we describing though? We're not really describing the entire data model, which might be fine. I don't know, does exporting a CSV... I really thought Claude had some kind of crazy Excel thing. That's all right. We'll see if the let's see if we can get file download CSV. I don't think CSV files have formulas. Oh boy. So let's take a look at what we got in our CSV viewer here. Yeah, these are just numbers. But what I might be able to provide to Claude here, what if we just did an example day? See if it's like kind of smart. Actually, what we'll do is we'll give it this with these rows, and then I'll say for the next week, this is the formula. Oh, so we'll go boom. And then This is our formula for the back squat max on week 2. And really, again, what we're doing is like trying to inform Claude through just like some fuzzy kind of logic here to help it understand what we're working with, and we're just trying to get the best output possible. But let's take a look at our let's take a look at what we got over here. Okay, that's great. This is great. I really just don't like this font. So we can build out the functionality. We'll get something that's maybe a little bit more robust than this, and then we can iterate from there. Cool. RPE8 single override if performed. If user entered RPE in single, new TM single at 8%. Great. No data logged. So we're reverse engineering. Yep, we're reverse engineering the logic. This is exactly what I would want to expect. This is great. They confirmed the logic. They're refining the prompt. It does. This is excellent. Can you give me an updated prompt, please? And the key here is that we're communicating. We're communicating with an LLM, but we're just getting some help with how we explain these things. So I'm using Claude to basically extract the logic here in a way that we can then provide to an LLM. Users, programs, meso, micro, days, exercises, planned exercises. This is hella complicated, but this has all the logic, right? And so what we're going to do is we're really going to test Replit Agent's sort of autonomy and its ability to run at long durations, and we'll see what we get. Outstanding. This is really great. But what it doesn't capture is our application logic. So recall, we have some app logic here that's going to like talk about our different user flows. We'll take a look at this. Okay. So we have our app here. Remove all serif fonts and add a light mode. Cool. I like this. This looks good. So we don't have our application flow. So we're going to describe how this works. The one other piece that we need to incorporate into our prompt is our application flow. Basically, there needs to be a welcome screen if the user hasn't defined any programs yet. But if a program exists, the user should be able to should be displayed the next day of that program, and they should be able to enter and log that program. From there, we should be going through the different days of the program until it's completed, at which point the user should be prompted to review their past programs and performance or to start a new program. I feel like that captures everything. We're riffing. The thing I like about these videos is that they're a little bit more informal, and it's kind of fun to just like think out loud and talk about what I'm doing on a Tuesday night here. We're just riffing on it. User opens app, check active program instances, display welcome screen. Okay. Yeah, no, we don't want to do this. Remove this option. The user should then enter the program creation flow where they add their exercises and estimated 1 rep maxes and define things like the duration, etc. Okay, now it's going to write this hella long prompt for everything, so this is just going to take forever. I'm actually really excited about this because I can't believe that I've been building this in a spreadsheet for so long. We're going to get some really fun. We're going to get some. This app's going to be amazing. I'm like genuinely stoked for this. I use this spreadsheet every single day, if not every single day, 4 or 5 days a week, and it's terrible. So I actually think we're at a point where we can probably start manually editing this because Claude is going to now just start writing a lot of stuff, and then we'll go through this and we'll make sure that it's good. Thank you, Claude, for your service. Let's take a look at what we got here. Heck yeah! Actually, dude, I have been becoming kind of a sucker for light mode. Yeah, and I also don't like. Okay, we can remove the title of the page and the border in the header. I don't like that. Add in a. Yeah, we don't have to get too much into like sheets or whatever. So now we just have this minimalist little app, bench 3, 8, 50, 59. Why not? Beautiful. You can delete that. Looks great. Love it. Very happy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna like dig through this prompt. The prompt is too long. All right, I'll open up like a text editor or something, and we can talk through it. Okay, so because this is such a beast of a prompt, we're now in Google Docs. So we don't need that. Create a Postgres database and application logic for an evidence-based workout trapping app with auto-regulated progression, application flow, initial state, display welcome screen, start your first program, create custom program option, build in such a way that's extensible. We may want to allow users to submit programs in the future. Beautiful. Active program state. Display active program dashboard, program name, current weekday, start next workout, prominent, progress overview, option to view program details. Excellent. Workout session flow. Load workout session, day, name, exercise list, begin workout. For each exercise in sequence, if compound, use RP8 single, enter weight achieved, display working sets, last set to failure, for sets and reps. Cool. No, we want to display all apps for all exercises for a given day to allow the user to freely enter performance details. We don't need to go exercise by exercise. Why? Because sometimes machines are taken. Sometimes I switch up the order. Sometimes I do a superset because I'm short on time. I just want to have the display like very similar to the actual spreadsheet where I could just like enter multiple values. Session complete, finish, save workout session, completed at now, calculate progression state, show summary. Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't think it ever said start next workout. I think we got to log the time. Log start time for eventual duration calc. Sweet. The cool thing is we're just going to have all this data. We're going to have the number of reps you did, the amount of weight you moved, the total amount of time you're working out, the number of days that you're working out. This is going to be really fun. Between workouts, user returns the app, display next workout preview, recent workout summary, week progress indicator, option to view workout history, option to skip reschedule workout. I love that. Home, library, history. Utilize a drawer for the main app navigation. Very good. This is all just logic. Use Replit Auth for user management. One exercise at a time. Nope. Yep. This should be true when configuring the program as well. Allow notes, videos per exercise. I don't really do this at all, but I feel like people do, so I feel like that would be good to have in there. We can play with it or remove it if we don't like it. Cool. Also cool. Use async writes and optimistic updates for speedy performance. And this is just saying I don't want the database communication to block our application. So if I type in a number in a box, it should just write to the database. And if I change the number, it should just write it to the database again and overwrite that value within reason. Motivation. I don't need any motivation. I'm down for streaks. We don't need to do that. Yeah. Hypertrophy. Cool. Back squat, bench press, etc. Build muscle via compounds, progression, last set to failure, heavy compound lifts, last set to failure, isolation work, get big. Let's go, Claude. Let's freaking go. I think this is it, man. This is a pretty good prompt. What we're gonna say though, the one other thing is for workout logging, I think the thing every app struggles with is like exercise selection. And the problem is that, you have users entering in their own exercises, but ideally you don't want users doing that. You want them selecting from a library. But then people are like, the library doesn't have my super weird esoteric, cable thing that I'm doing. So I think we want the exercises to be intentionally like limited, where I say, this is the supported exercises. And if you want to add an exercise, you request that, then we add it. Or actually, rather, there would be a library, like a single shared library, and then you could add your own personal library, which means that we'd need to think about that as well. So I like all this. Let's add a little section. Exercise logging. There should be a main exercise library, then a shared or a user library. The main library will contain exercises available to all users, common exercises. The user library will contain user selected exercises that can be that are private, but can be added to the main library eventually. So again, we're going for this composability and this reusability, kind of building that in. All right, I don't think it's really worth I think the logic's good. The business rules, I like to call it business rules, can be strength or hypertrophy focus. Always use last set to failure. Can optionally use RP8 singles for auto regulation. Yeah, there's a bunch of other logic that we didn't even talk about, but I think this is a really good start. So we're gonna copy this. That's great. We're gonna create a new chat. And I'm gonna say this is currently a design shell. You should maintain all design principles, but now we are going to build out our app. Boom. Here are the instructions. We're going to go max autonomy. A little crazy, but this is a lot in context. So got app testing, we got max autonomy, and I've never really tried this out before. You think I would have tried this before I just spent like 2 hours planning on it, but we're doing it together. The other thing, actually, before we send this, we're going to use plan mode. This is actually really great. Here are the instructions. Help me think through the implementation. We're going to use plan mode, and then we'll keep it low autonomy for now. I don't think it really matters in plan mode. Plan mode's a great way to save money. Everybody should know about plan mode because I think it's just great to chat with the AI you're going to use to build before you start building. And the reason I just spent all that time kind of prototyping that in Claude and then bring it into plan mode is because we were just kind of doing things in parallel. But the great thing now is that we're bringing that information that we built out, that logic, into context, into Replit, into the actual tool we're going to use to then build this application. So, anytime you upload an asset, we're going to drop that in Replit. So now it has all of this logic that we just added in. And you can see what it's also doing is understanding the current state of the app. So it's going to like open all the different files in here and understand what we got. So cool. So one, start with an empty library. Schema, Replit auth, basic data layer. Exercise library, program creation UI, core workout flow, navigation shell, home screen logic, history and analytics. 2 looks good. Logic placement. They are. Give me pros, cons, initial focus. Would you prefer to start with a working end-to-end flow? Build out the full database program creation tools and then add workout logging. 4, start with working flow. Cool. Actually, what was it asking about with this library? Yeah, no, these should actually happen in the front end because eventually I want to make this offline. Yeah, cool. We're going to continue planning. We're going to say go with the shared libraries. Also, seed our shared exercise library as a part of this app. Toggle on all the max autonomy things. Database schema and auth, progression calculation, back layer, programs, navigation shell. Okay, cool. So it just changed that piece. And now I think we're ready to start building. So we'll call this episode here. This was kind of refining our app, talking through the design and some of the logic. And now we're just going to kick off the build on max autonomy with self-testing with Replit Agent. I would expect this to take probably close to an hour. We'll see. Typically, an hour of work with Replit Agent costs about $10. But I think we got all the context in there, and now it's just going to be just being really conscientious and attentive to detail and making sure agent implements things that as we'd expect them, and then just course correcting along the way. But I think that this is the real crux of the application. And there's a lot of other functionality we want to add. There's a lot of like AI functionality I want to add. But like, hey, say I want to do shoulder press, that should just get categorized as shoulders. We could do that with like some type safety or like database schemas that specify, hey, like shoulders, the only groups you can consider are these groups, and working that into our app. So I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff that we can build into this app, and I think we're really on track. It wouldn't surprise me though if this initial build is going to take a while, because it's going to be building out a crazy complex data structure here. Authentication tables. It's going to start working on these core structure tables. Oh my gosh. I feel like there's a spectrum of vibe coding, and I've always stayed like pretty tight, like pretty in the loop. And this is like kind of really vibe coding, where I don't know everything that's going on here, and we're just going to send it, and then we're going to kind of whittle it down until we get it from that 80% to the 100%. But I'm excited for it. So I'll join you back in the next video. We're going to have our like V1 build, and we're going to go from there.